Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about the greatest albums and bands for me, based on listening to thousands of CDs and watching hundreds of bands over the many years. Today I will be featuring Motorhead, the great British tradition, as I call them. Motorhead. Everybody's heard of Motorhead. For good reasons or bad reasons, it doesn't matter. Motorhead are legends, icons in the music world. Motorhead and me. Well, my history goes right back to the beginning for me with rock and metal music. Motorhead were one of the first bands that I got into. It was 1979, and this was one of the rare occasions where I got into a band without actually hearing their music. And this used to happen quite a bit with rock and metal fans back in the day, before we had the internet and that ability to just listen to music on demand. And also before MTV, where we'd have music videos on the television. Yes, we had the radio, but like I've said in previous episodes, trying to find rock and metal on the radio in the UK was a very hard thing to do. We only had our 2 hours a week to look forward to. So I read about Motorhead first in Sounds magazine, or Sounds newspaper, whatever you want to call it, which was a weekly music newspaper. And it would talk about Motorhead quite a lot and show pictures of them, and I thought they looked pretty cool. And then one day in a record store, I saw this cover. And when I saw this cover for the album, I thought, I've got to have it. I've got to have it. And I actually bought the cassette version. I don't have it anymore, unfortunately. In fact, it should be one of those things that I rebuy just for the historical purposes, because it was actually the first cassette I ever bought in my life. So, 1979, in my hands, I had Motorhead's Overkill cassette. And I would try and play it to my parents, and I actually remember playing it one day to my uncle, because I think I got it the day before, went to visit one of my uncles, and he just was not interested at all. He's like, what is this shite? Although he didn't say shite to me because I was only a young lad. But to me it was awesome, and Overkill is the album I'm going to be talking about today. A little bit of Motorhead history. They formed in 1975, and it was this man, Lemmy, who formed the band after he'd been kicked out of his previous band, Hawkwind, because he had been arrested for drug possession. So they kicked him out of the band, and he started his own band. Motorhead's early success, not that great. Again, people were like, what is this? Because Lemmy's voice is very distinctive, very original, and the music they were making was very loud and aggressive. They were probably, many people will say, the first band to spearhead the new wave of British heavy metal in the late 70s, early 80s. They had a major lineup change ready for 1979, when they produced two amazing classic albums. They produced this album, Bomber, and this, I know you can't see it on the video, this is a signed album cover of Bomber, signed by Lemmy, Fast Eddie Clarke, and Filthy Animal Taylor, the three iconic members of Motorhead at this time that produced Bomber, produced Overkill, and produced Ace of Spades, and another album I don't have here, Iron Fist. Those albums really cemented the career of Motorhead, and it was the Ace of Spades album, and of course the song The Ace of Spades that most people know Motorhead for. But they had a career that spanned 22 albums and sadly only came to an end in 2015 with the death of Lemmy. And even though Fast Eddie Clarke and Filthy Animal Taylor had long since left the band in the early 80s, they were ultimately replaced. There were a few other lineup changes, but they were ultimately replaced by two guys, Phil Campbell on guitar, Mickey D on drums, and that was the mainstay of the Motorhead lineup for most of its career. They were together for over 20 years. And they produced some brilliant albums in that time. It's not just about those iconic three of Bomber, Overkill, and Ace of Spades. There's so much more to Motorhead's career. So let's go on to my first introduction to Motorhead, which was this album, Overkill. This is a 40th anniversary release that was released last year. It's a beautiful version, very heavy. It's heavy because it contains 3 vinyl LPs, and it's beautifully packaged in a booklet style with the lyrics to the song and some pictures and an essay about Motorhead at that time. It of course has the Motorhead album in it, and then it also has a live album titled Good and Loud. The only way to feel the noise, when it's good and loud. That is a live album from Aylesbury Friars in 1979, and includes, of course, many tracks from the Overkill album, and also classics that weren't on the Overkill album but were on other releases, such as, of course, the title track Motorhead itself from Motorhead. So, my favourite 4. I always pick 4 tracks that I would recommend from an album. What are my favourite 4? Well, of course, the title track Overkill. It is a brilliant song. Many people point to this track as being the track that introduced double bass drumming, kick drumming bass, to rock music. The brilliant drumming by Filthy Animal Taylor on this. A brilliant riff, great lyrics, great everything about this. You cannot fault this track. Very long track, made even longer by the ending, because you get the ending of the track, and you get a bit of silence, and then you get a false ending, which brings in more drumming and guitar riffs, double bass drumming and guitar riffs, and then you get a second false ending, bringing in more drumming, more guitar riffs. Lovely idea. I've never heard that done before, never heard it done since. Very unique. Next track on the album, and my second pick, would be the track Stay Clean. Great track, good driving track, featured in their set list most tours, as did another track that started side 2 of the album, No Class. No Class! Da, 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 da. Brilliant track again. For me, No Class and Stay Clean are like brother and sister tracks. A very, very similar kind of feel to them. And then my 4th pick would be the song Damage Case. The riff on Damage Case is awesome. Da, 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 da. Move over for a damage case. Brilliant track. Metallica covered that superbly as well on their Garage Inc. album. So there you have it. Overkill. Get it in your collection if you've not got it. It's a brilliant album. It's on a par for me with Ace of Spades. Those 2 albums, difficult to separate those as being the best Motorhead album, I might just tip my hat to Overkill, given its place in my history. Now I want to talk about seeing Motorhead live, but before I do that, let's take a look at rock t-shirts by the sea. Hope you enjoyed that. So let's talk about Motorhead live. I first saw Motorhead live in 1986 at the Donington Rock Festival. You can probably see a t-shirt down in the corner there. Ozzy Osbourne was the main band. Scorpions, not on the t-shirt, but they did play on the day. Def Leppard, and also Motorhead. That was my first introduction to the Motorhead live experience, and I saw them again in '87. Here's the shirt from the Rock and Roll tour. But the gig I want to talk about today is when I saw them in the year 2000. Here is the ticket, and it was their 25th anniversary show at Brixton Academy. Cost me 15 English pounds, bargain. And what was so special about this show, of which there is also a DVD called 25th Alive Bone Shaker, is it was their 25th anniversary show. And it was a very, very special show for many reasons. First of all, it was in Brixton, which was a great venue. The Brixton Academy, a great venue to see a band like Motorhead. Not too small, not too big. Standing room downstairs, so you could really rock out if you wanted to. Sold out, a fantastic atmosphere, and anticipation for this gig was high. And it did not disappoint. I have seen Motorhead countless times. This is the one that sticks in my memory bank. They were on fire, they were having fun, and they also had a great list of special guests turn up for this. So let's have a look at some of the tracks. I'm going to look at the set list from this piece of paper, because I also have some notes about when the special guests appeared, because I can't remember off the top of my head. It was 20 years ago, give me a break. Okay, the first thing I'll mention about the set list, I'm not going to go through all of the tracks, is that it was a set list that spanned all of their career. We got tracks from the albums I mentioned earlier, but also we got tracks from the newer albums that had been released, such as We Are Motorhead and Bastards and March or Die and Sacrifice. So we got a great spread of songs across all of their career. And like I said, we got some very, very special guests at this gig. For the track Born to Raise Hell, of which there's two versions of this track on the albums. You have the full normal Motorhead version that appears on the Bastards album, but there's also a version that features two special guests. One is Ice-T, and another one is Whitfield Crane, who's the singer for a band called Ugly Kid Joe. And for this track, the vocals that Ice-T and Whitfield Crane normally sing in the track were sung by Whitfield Crane and, no, not Ice-T, but Doro Pesch, who was always a great friend of Lemmy, and she fronted the band Warlock for a period of time, and then went out on her own and still has a very successful career today as a metal singer. Other special guests Well, straight after Born to Raise Hell, we got a track from the Ace of Spades album, The Chase is Better Than the Catch. And the legendary former member Fast Eddie Clarke appeared on stage. The place went ballistic. Fast Eddie's on stage, yay! And they played the song together. Later on in the set list, we get to the end of the show and the track Killed by Death. Killed by Death. And here we get Lemmy's son and Fast Eddie's son joining the band to play that track. Nice little treat. But the treats were to get even better, because finishing off with the song Overkill, that had been preceded by Bomber and Ace of Spades. For the song Overkill, the last song of the night, we get special guest Fast Eddie Clarke, of course. We get special guest Ace from a band called Skunk Anansie, who were pretty big, a British band, pretty big at that particular time. But the biggest guest of all, we get Queen's Brian May. Brian May with Motörhead. Awesome. Awesome. What a way to end the show. Overkill, Motörhead with Fast Eddie, and with Brian May. Amazing gig. Get this DVD. This DVD is brilliant. It shows you how good this gig was. And of course, as with all Motörhead concerts, it was loud. Brilliant gig. Brilliant time. Motörhead. I really miss Motörhead. It's such a shame we'll get no more new music from that great, great band. Rest in peace, Lemmy. Okay, so I will leave you with my 4 Motörhead favourites. And I'm not just going to go for the early days tracks. I'm going to bring a newer one, say newer, it's still quite old, in there. Of course, as I said earlier, I recommend the Overkill album. My second pick, of course, is Ace of Spades. And it's actually the 40th anniversary of Ace of Spades this month, I think, November 2020. And there's a new edition out for that, which I'm sure will wing its way into my collection at some point. Then I'm going to pick one a little bit out of left field here. Now this is one that was severely criticised by many Motorhead fans at the time of its release, and mainly I think because it came after Fast Eddie had left, and his replacement was a guy called Brian Robbo Robertson, who'd been a guitarist in Thin Lizzy, and he didn't help himself by the way he looked. He had short curly hair, and he liked to play in shorts. It didn't really fit the hard leather biker image that Motorhead had, but he was a brilliant songwriter, and his skill combined with Lemmy's skill produced a fantastic album. Probably the most melodic album that Motorhead have produced. It is brilliant, really, check that one out, Another Perfect Day. And then a little bit later, we get the album Inferno, which features the lineup I mentioned that have been the mainstay for most of Motorhead's career, with Phil Campbell and Mickey D. A brilliant album, some great tracks on this, a lot of great tracks on this, and very worthy to be part of my 4 favourite Motorhead albums. So there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please subscribe, press the red button so that you can see future episodes of Greatest Rock and Metal. And until next time, remember, as always, we rock!